Have you ever noticed how some mornings seem to carry you forward, as if the universe itself has cleared the path, while others weigh you down like an unseen tide? Tonight, as you listen, allow yourself to rest in this gentle mystery. Before we begin, take a slow breath, feel the quiet around you, and let the room soften into calm. If you haven't yet, subscribe so that we can share more of these journeys together. And tell me, where are you listening from? And what time is it there? This story begins not in history, but in the hidden rhythms beneath your own life, the patterns of breath, emotion, and thought that ripple outward into the greater field of possibility. We will follow how your frequency shapes reality, how coherence stabilizes the body and opens the heart, and how each small choice, each breath, each pause can bend the currents of experience. So settle into the stillness, because what unfolds is not just a lesson, but a remembering of the signal you already carry. Have you ever paused in the middle of an ordinary day and wondered why reality feels different depending on the quality of your inner state? Some mornings the world greets you with quiet ease. The air seems lighter, and every encounter feels as though it carries a hidden gift waiting for you to notice. On other mornings, the same streets feel heavy. Your body aches as if dragging unseen weight, and every sound irritates you as though the universe itself has turned its face away. These are not random fluctuations. They are reflections of your frequency, the living broadcast of your body, mind, and emotions weaving together into one continuous signal. When that signal is coherent, reality appears softer, more cooperative. When it fractures into scattered rhythms, the same reality becomes rigid, unresponsive, and cold. Science and spirituality are beginning to agree on this point. What you perceive as chance is not truly random, but rather the meeting point of your personal resonance with the greater field of possibilities that surrounds all of us like an unseen ocean. And so, coherence, the art of harmonizing your frequency, is less about mystical attainment and more about remembering how to inhabit your own body with awareness. At the core of coherence lies the realization that you are not merely thinking with a brain or feeling with a heart. You are generating fields of information that ripple outward and interact with the world. Consider for a moment the rhythm of your breath. When shallow and hurried, your body prepares for threat, hormones surge, and your thoughts scatter. When slow and deep, especially when matched with compassion or appreciation, your nervous system finds balance, your brain hemispheres synchronize, and your heart's electromagnetic field shifts into organized waves that radiate well beyond your skin. Studies have shown that these patterns can be measured not just inside your body, but in the space around you, extending in subtle ways that others unconsciously sense. This is why some people feel calming to be around without saying a word, while others bring tension even before they speak. What you carry within you is not silent. It is constantly broadcasting, and every moment is an opportunity to tune the station you're transmitting. Most of us, however, remain stuck on automatic frequencies. The unfinished arguments of yesterday resurface as thought loops this morning. Old disappointments color today's encounters. The body, primed by memory, releases the same hormones that shaped yesterday's mood, tricking us into believing the same reality is repeating when, in truth, it is our own unshifted signal echoing outward. This cycle is what keeps life feeling repetitive, as though fate has locked us into the same story. But the lock is not external. It is the nervous system replaying familiar rhythms, like a drum repeating a tired beat. Quantum perspectives reveal that this repetition is not destiny, but rather a broadcast pattern. If the instrument keeps striking the same note, the field will keep returning the same harmonics. The way out of the loop is not to fight harder, but to shift the rhythm itself, to breathe differently, to observe instead of react, to create coherence in the midst of chaos. One of the most overlooked truths is that coherence is not extraordinary. It is available in small, almost invisible gestures. A single moment of slowing your breath, a pause before responding, the choice to release tension in your shoulders. These subtle acts recalibrate the entire system. Neuroscience confirms that such moments reorganize heart rhythms and brain waves, creating conditions for clarity and balance. What begins as a fragile thread of awareness, repeated often, becomes a stable pattern your nervous system learns to return to more easily. Over time, coherence shifts from a practice you do occasionally to a natural state your body recognizes as home. Imagine coherence as tuning an instrument. At first, the strings feel resistant, but each time you tighten or loosen them with attention, the music becomes more harmonious. Eventually, the instrument begins to hold its tuning more consistently. So it is with you. The more you return to coherence, the more natural it becomes to stay aligned, even amid stress. This brings us to an intriguing phenomenon: your heart's electromagnetic field, which scientists have found to be far stronger than your brain's, becomes highly ordered during coherence. In this state, the waves it produces are not chaotic, but smooth and rhythmic, radiating several feet beyond your body. Others feel it instinctively. A person walking into a room with stable coherence can shift the entire atmosphere, not by force, but by resonance. It is as though their field acts like a tuning fork, inviting everything around it to settle into a more harmonious vibration. This subtle influence explains why moments of genuine calm and compassion seem to ripple outward, into families, workplaces, and even communities. You do not have to speak to create this effect. Your presence itself carries it. And in realizing this, the question becomes, what kind of signal are you choosing to broadcast into the world each day? The answer often begins in the liminal space between sleep and waking. This transition, when brain waves shift and the subconscious opens, is like standing at the threshold of a new broadcast. Most people stumble across it carelessly, reaching for phones or re-entering the stream of yesterday's stress before their body has even risen. But those who pause here, breathing slowly, feeling gratitude, or simply observing the silence, discover that this threshold is one of the most powerful opportunities of the day. To choose coherence here is to set the rhythm of the day before it unfolds, tuning the instrument before playing the music. Even a few minutes of heart-centered breathing upon waking creates a physiological foundation of clarity and calm that lingers, making it easier to respond with grace instead of reactivity. This is not a mystical claim, but a biological truth confirmed by research. In heart-brain synchronization, your morning state influences the entire arc of your day. Yet coherence does not mean life will stop presenting challenges. External turbulence is inevitable. The art lies not in eliminating stress, but in returning quickly to alignment after it strikes. Every transition shifting tasks, answering a message, receiving feedback becomes an opportunity either to scatter into incoherence or to restore balance. Scientists refer to these as micro-transitions, and though they are easily overlooked, they accumulate to shape the tone of entire days. A pause after criticism, a single conscious inhale before answering, a softening of the body during conflict. These tiny shifts interrupt downward spirals and restore clarity. The nervous system, through repetition, learns to rebound faster until coherence becomes not a fragile state, but a resilient baseline. This resilience is the essence of mastery. Not controlling every event, but recovering alignment again and again until it feels natural. Environment, too, plays an invisible but crucial role. Cluttered rooms, harsh lighting, and digital overload create static in the field, while natural spaces, trees, flowing water, even simple orderliness support coherence. Your body is not separate from its environment. It responds to the signals it absorbs. Hydration, whole foods, deep rest, and device-free sleep zones amplify your field, sharpening the clarity of your signal. Think of your body as an instrument. If the strings are rusted or the wood cracked, no amount of intention can produce beautiful sound. Tending to your physical vessel is not vanity. It is part of aligning the frequency you project. Another dimension emerges as your practice deepens. The ability to protect coherence not through resistance, but through radiance. Visualization helps here. Imagine drawing light into your heart with each inhale, letting it expand outward until it surrounds your body as a luminous boundary. This field does not resist the world, but filters it, welcoming what nourishes and releasing what disrupts. Over time, this boundary ceases to feel imagined. It becomes embodied, influencing your physiology and your interactions. Others sense the steadiness without explanation, and life seems to rearrange itself in response. You may notice fewer draining encounters, more supportive ones, and an increase in synchronicities that feel like subtle affirmations from the field itself. Science supports these experiences in surprising ways. Studies of group meditation, for instance, reveal measurable decreases in local crime rates and stress indicators, suggesting that coherent fields influence collective patterns. Though often dismissed as coincidence, the consistency of such findings hints at a deeper truth. Coherence is contagious. One aligned heart stabilizes not only the self, but the surrounding environment. This is not power in the conventional sense, but resonance, a reminder that your frequency matters, not only for your personal well-being, but for the wider fabric of reality. Each act of coherence is an offering, a thread woven into the collective tapestry. And so the invitation is simple yet profound, to remember coherence again and again, not as perfection, but as participation. Every breath is a choice to collapse, possibility into one outcome or another. Each time you choose alignment over reaction, you are shaping not just your mood, but the very future you walk into. Close your eyes, breathe, and feel this truth. You are not separate from the field of infinite potential. You are one of its expressions, a living signal of consciousness in motion. The frequency you carry is not passive, it is the architect of your experience. And as you tune it with awareness, you not only reshape your personal life, but contribute to a collective resonance that makes it easier for others to remember who they are. If Part 1 revealed, that coherence is the tuning of your personal signal. Then Part 2 explores what happens when that signal begins to interact with the deeper structures of reality. To understand this, imagine your life not as a straight line of events, but as a field of probabilities surrounding you at every moment. Each thought you think, each emotion you allow, each breath you take acts as a frequency that selects from. Those probabilities, like a musician choosing which note to strike next. The more coherent your frequency, the more the chosen outcomes seem to align with your intentions, and the less you feel at the mercy of chance. Incoherence, on the other hand, blurs your influence, your signal scatters, and the field reflects. This confusion back through disjointed events, missed opportunities, or cycles of frustration. The strange part is that most people never realize they are not just living within reality. They are continuously shaping which version of reality they walk into by the state they hold within themselves. This principle is often misunderstood because it is not about controlling every external detail. Coherence does not guarantee that traffic clears, that storms avoid you, or that every person agrees with you. Rather, it reorganizes how you experience and respond to those events. A coherent person caught in the ring may feel wonder at the freshness of the drops, while an incoherent person curses the sky. Both lived the same weather, but each entered a different reality based on the signal they carried. Multiply this across thousands of daily moments, and coherence is revealed not as magic, but as a subtle sculptor of perception, guiding the story you end up telling about your life. And perception, as psychologists remind us, is not passive. It directs behavior, shapes memory, and conditions the body's chemistry. The story you live becomes the body you inhabit. One of the most unusual phenomena linked to coherence is synchronicity, the appearance of meaningful coincidences that seem to arrive with perfect timing. At first, these experiences are dismissed as random luck, but the more consistently you practice coherence, the more such patterns appear, often too precise to ignore. You think of a friend you have not spoken to in years, and suddenly they call. You feel drawn to change your route home, and along the way you encounter the very opportunity you had been seeking. These are not accidents in the conventional sense. They are reflections of a field responding to your signal with subtle precision. Quantum theory suggests that particles themselves do not exist in fixed states until observed. They hover in probability fields, collapsing into form when coherence of observation occurs. In a similar way, synchronicities collapse around the coherence of your state, revealing that your life is not just unfolding, it is conversing with you. These experiences often evoke deep emotion because they remind you that you are not navigating existence alone. Something larger is listening, reflecting, and responding to your presence. And in these moments, tears may come without reason, not from sadness, but from recognition. The recognition that reality itself has memory of you, that the field is alive with awareness, and that you are both participant and partner in its unfolding. This is not philosophy alone. It is felt directly when the hair rises on your skin, when the air thickens with significance, when the boundaries between inner and outer blur. You realize coherence is not just self-regulation. It is communion with a greater intelligence woven into all things. And once you taste this, life is never again as dull or mechanical as you once assumed. But here lies a subtle danger. When coherence becomes associated with constant bliss, people begin to chase it as a high, turning it into another form of striving. The truth is softer. Coherence is not about feeling perfect. It is about staying connected, even in imperfection. Anger, grief, and fear do not vanish from a coherent life. Instead, they move through more swiftly, no longer clogging the system with residue. You learn to witness these emotions as waves rather than drown in them. A coherent person can cry fully and still remain centered, because coherence is not denial. It is the spaciousness that allows emotions to flow without becoming identity. This distinction is crucial. Without it, seekers exhaust themselves trying to maintain an impossible state, when the deeper invitation is to remember and return again and again, with compassion for the moments you forget. The body confirms this. Wisdom. Coherence stabilizes heart rhythms, which in turn stabilize brain activity, leading to clarity of thought even under stress. Soldiers trained in coherence techniques recover faster from trauma. Students taught heart-breathing methods focus longer and recall information more effectively. Couples who practice coherence together experience measurable synchronization in their heart rhythms, even when sitting quietly across a room. These findings suggest that coherence is not simply personal, but relational, that human fields naturally entrain to one another. What one holds, others feel. In this way, practicing coherence is both self-care and service, a quiet offering to every environment you enter. Without preaching a word, you become a lighthouse of stability in a storm-tossed world. And yet, coherence is tested most not in meditation halls, but in ordinary struggles. The email that provokes you, the unexpected bill, the tense conversation at dinner, these are the true training grounds. Each moment tempts you to scatter, to contract, to forget the signal you broadcast. And each time you choose instead to breathe, to soften, to align, you strengthen the neural and energetic pathways of coherence. Think of a blacksmith forging steel. It is not a single strike that hardens the blade, but repeated strikes, tempered again and again in fire and water. Life offers you these strikes daily, not as punishment but as practice, shaping you into an instrument strong enough to hold coherence under any pressure. With each trial endured, you become less reactive, more resilient, and more luminous. Fascinating extension of this principle arises when groups intentionally cultivate coherence together. Research on collective meditation reveals shifts not only in participants, but in the broader environment, with indicators of stress and violence declining in measurable ways. While skeptics debate the mechanisms, the pattern is too consistent to ignore. When coherent fields overlap, they amplify, creating resonance larger than any single individual could sustain alone. This suggests that humanity's evolution may depend less on grand revolutions and more on countless individuals practicing coherence in their private lives, their homes, their workplaces. Each moment of alignment is not just personal healing, but collective contribution, weaving a global network of stabilizing frequencies. Quietly, without fanfare, the world shifts. One of the strangest but most beautiful discoveries comes when you realize that coherence also alters your sense of time. In incoherence, hours drag, stress stretches moments into heaviness, and the future feels like a weight pressing forward. In coherence, time seems to soften, expand, and flow differently. You may glance at the clock after an immersive task and find hours have passed effortlessly, or walk through a forest and feel eternity folded into each step. This altered time is not an illusion, but a reconfiguration of perception as your nervous system relaxes. By synchronizing with the rhythms of breath and heart, you step into what ancient traditions called the eternal now, a state where past regrets and future worries dissolve, leaving presence as the only reality. In this state, decisions become clearer, intuition sharpens, and life feels guided rather than forced. The ripple effects of living this way cannot be overstated. Relationships transform because you listen more deeply and react less impulsively. Work becomes less about grinding and more about flowing. Creativity blossoms as scattered thoughts quiet, allowing novel connections to emerge. Even health improves as the body's systems operate with greater efficiency under coherent regulation. The change is not mystical. It is practical, biological, and relational. And yet, its cumulative effect is extraordinary. Life shifts from feeling like a struggle against circumstances to a dance with them. You no longer move through days braced for conflict. You move with an undercurrent of trust that whatever arises can be met with alignment. At the center of all, this remains a quiet invitation to remember that coherence is not a destination but a rhythm, a way of being. Every inhale and exhale is a chance to re-enter it. Every challenge is an invitation to strengthen it. And every act of alignment, no matter how small, broadcasts a signal that ripples outward into the field we all share. You are never practicing for yourself alone. You are rehearsing a frequency that will echo into your family, your community, and the larger story of humanity. Even now, as you listen to these words, you are part of this unfolding a living signal, tuning reality with the steady rhythm of your heart, as you move deeper into the practice of coherence. A profound realization arises. You are not simply adjusting your mood, you are participating in the architecture of reality itself. Each breath becomes a quiet act of creation. Each moment of presence, a thread woven into the fabric of the field. The more you embody this, the more you begin to sense that reality is listening, shaping itself, not around what you demand, but around the frequency you sustain. This recognition changes the way you walk through the world. No longer are you solely preoccupied with external control. Instead, you begin to cultivate inner harmony as the true compass of your life. What you carry inside becomes the determinant of what doors open, what connections form, and how time itself unfolds before you. And this does not happen in grand leaps. It happens in subtle increments, in the steady rhythm of awareness returned again and again. One of the most striking shifts people notice as coherence stabilizes is the clarity of intuition. Intuition is often misunderstood as guesswork or vague feeling, but in truth, it is the nervous system's ability to detect patterns and signals far beyond the conscious mind's range. When scattered by stress or incoherence, intuition is muffled, distorted, or drowned out by the noise of survival chemistry. But in coherence, when the body's systems synchronize, intuition sharpens like a clear tone. You may find yourself knowing without knowing why, sensing danger before it appears, or feeling drawn toward a decision that later proves crucial. These are not supernatural tricks, but the natural intelligence of the body-mind operating in alignment. Science is beginning to confirm what mystics long knew. The heart often perceives information milliseconds before the brain processes it, hinting that awareness is not confined to neurons, but flows through the entire energetic system. This sharpening of intuition often brings an uncanny sense of being guided, as though reality itself is nudging you forward. Many describe this as a partnership with life. Events align, people appear at just the right moment, and challenges unfold in ways that reveal hidden meaning. It is not that difficulties vanish. Rather, they begin to feel purposeful, woven into a larger narrative that supports your growth. When you inhabit coherence, obstacles stop feeling like punishments and start appearing as invitations, opportunities to refine your alignment and to deepen your trust. And with this trust comes a softening. You resist less, you flow more, and the world feels less like a battlefield and more like a conversation. But coherence is not only about receiving, it is about radiating. As your field stabilizes, you begin to notice how environments change in your presence. A tense meeting softens, a distressed child calms, a chaotic space becomes quieter. This is not control, it is resonance. You are not forcing change, but offering a frequency others can attune to if they wish. And often, without realizing it, they do. Families heal not through lectures, but through presence. Workplaces shift not only through policies, but through the unseen influence of coherent individuals who anchor stability. Even strangers feel it. Someone may comment that they feel peaceful around you without understanding why. What they are. Sensing is coherence radiating through your heart field, an unspoken language of stability that communicates beyond words. The strange beauty of this influence is that it requires no performance. In fact, striving to project an image fractures coherence because the nervous system tightens under pretense. True coherence is silent, effortless, and honest. It arises from alignment, not from trying to appear aligned. This is why authenticity and vulnerability are powerful allies in the practice. When you admit your fear, when you allow your grief, when you breathe through discomfort instead of suppressing it, coherence is not lost, but strengthened. Because coherence is not perfection, it is wholeness. It is the inclusion of every part of you in a rhythm of acceptance. And when you hold yourself this way, others sense permission to do the same. You become a mirror reminding them that it is safe to return to themselves. Another dimension reveals itself when coherence is extended beyond the personal and relational into the planetary. Ancient traditions often spoke of humans as bridges between earth and sky, channels through which cosmic and terrestrial energies interact. Modern science, too, is beginning to explore how geomagnetic fields influence human coherence and how human coherence, in turn, might influence collective patterns. Studies have shown correlations between solar activity, geomagnetic fluctuations, and changes in human mood or behavior. While the mechanisms remain mysterious, the implication is clear. We are participants in a larger symphony of frequencies, influenced by and influencing forces far beyond our immediate environment. To live in coherence is to join this symphony, consciously to contribute a note of stability that harmonizes not only with those nearby, but with the greater rhythms of the planet itself. This awareness brings both humility and empowerment. Humility, because you recognize that you are not the center of reality, but one participant in a vast interconnected web. Empowerment, because you realize that your choices matter, that the way you breathe, feel, and think contributes to the collective field. Every act of coherence, no matter how private, is never truly private. It ripples outward, merging with the signals of others, shaping the invisible climate in which humanity lives. And in this recognition, a new sense of responsibility arises, not the heavy responsibility of burden, but the sacred responsibility of contribution. You become a gardener of frequencies, tending the soil of the collective through the coherence you embody in daily life. Yet the practice is not always easy. Life will still present storms, loss, illness, injustice, heartbreak. In these moments, coherence can feel fragile, easily shattered. But it is precisely here that its deepest power is revealed. For coherence does not promise immunity from pain. It promises resilience within it. When grief arrives, coherence allows you to feel it fully without drowning. When anger rises, coherence allows you to channel it into clarity rather than destruction. When uncertainty clouds the path, coherence allows you to trust the unfolding rather than collapse into despair. It is not a shield against life, but a lantern within it, guiding you through darkness with steady light. And over time, you discover that even in the hardest seasons, coherence whispers, you are still connected, you are still held, you are still part of a greater rhythm that will carry you forward. Perhaps the most extraordinary gift of coherence is the recognition that it transforms identity itself. In incoherence, you are bound tightly to the small self, the collection of fears, desires, and stories that seem to define you. In coherence, that grip loosens, and you begin to sense yourself as more than the roles you play. You feel yourself as awareness moving through experience, as energy shaping reality, as consciousness exploring itself through the lens of your life. This shift does not erase your individuality, but expands it, placing it within the context of something infinite. You are still uniquely you, but you are also more than you, a node in the vast field of being. And this recognition dissolves loneliness, for you see that you have never been separate, only temporarily forgetting your place. In the whole dot, as you live from this expanded identity, new qualities naturally blossom. Compassion deepens because you see others not as adversaries, but as fellow frequencies in the field. Patience grows because you understand that each life unfolds in its own rhythm. Gratitude becomes more spontaneous because every breath feels like participation in something sacred. Even ordinary tasks take on a glow of meaning because coherence infuses them with presence. Washing dishes, walking down the street, sitting in silence, all become portals into the deeper reality humming beneath appearances. You begin to notice that beauty is not rare but constant, waiting only for the coherence of perception to reveal it. And so, coherence becomes less of a practice and more of a way of being. It is no longer something you try to achieve, but something you remember to inhabit. Like a musician who, after years of training, plays without thinking, you too begin to live coherence without effort. It becomes your baseline, your home frequency, the silent music playing through every action. And in this way, life transforms. Not because all storms vanish, but because you discover that even storms have rhythm. And when met with coherence, their chaos becomes part of a larger harmony. In the end, coherence teaches a single luminous truth. You are not separate from a field of infinite possibility. You are one of its voices, singing reality into form with every breath, every choice, every heartbeat. And the more you live in alignment with this truth, the more life reveals itself, not as something happening to you, but as something happening with you, through you, and for you. You are not a bystander in the unfolding. You are a co-creator, a conscious frequency shaping the symphony of existence. Remember this, return to it, breathe it, and let it guide the path ahead. For coherence is not only the key to personal transformation, it is the doorway through which humanity remembers its place in the greater whole. The deeper you journey into coherence, the more you begin to sense that reality itself is built upon patterns of resonance. What once felt like a collection of isolated events begins to reveal itself as a living web, each thread vibrating with memory and intention, each intersection carrying a silent intelligence. At first, this may appear subtle, a glance that communicates more than words, a decision that feels guided rather than calculated, a silence that restores you more than hours of noise ever could. But over time, you realize these subtle impressions are not background details. They are the very fabric from which reality emerges. Coherence sharpens perception, so that what once seemed random now appears as choreography, each step woven into a greater dance. And the dance responds to you, not as a puppet master, but as a partner, adjusting its rhythm to match the signal you emit. This recognition brings a quiet awe, because it dissolves the illusion of separation. You are not merely in the world. You are woven with it, and every thought, breath, and emotion you release ripples through the field. This is not metaphor alone. Physics reminds us that energy is never lost, only transformed. Each coherent breath generates electromagnetic patterns. Each compassionate thought alters hormonal cascades. Each act of presence shifts both body and environment. These ripples may be invisible to the eye, but they accumulate, much like drops of water carving stone over centuries. In this way, your daily coherence becomes not just personal practice, but planetary contribution, part of the hidden architecture shaping tomorrow's world. A fascinating aspect of this process is how coherence changes memory itself. In incoherence, memory is fragmented, colored by stress hormones that fixate on threat and loss. Experiences repeat in loops, triggered by the body's constant vigilance. But in coherence, the brain processes memory differently, integrating experiences with more balance. Painful events are still remembered, but they lose their sharp edge. They become part of a larger narrative of growth rather than frozen moments of trauma. People practicing coherence often describe feeling lighter, not because they forget their past, but because their relationship to it changes. What was once a wound becomes a scar, and what was once a scar becomes a symbol of resilience. This shift frees enormous amounts of energy once trapped in repetitive cycles, energy that can now be directed toward creativity, connection, and expansion. Creativity, in fact, flourishes within coherence. When the nervous system is synchronized, scattered thoughts quiet, and the brain's hemispheres communicate more fluidly. This integration produces novel insights, unexpected solutions, and bursts of inspiration. Artists report entering flow states where time dissolves and creativity seems to pour through them rather than from them. Scientists, too, describe sudden flashes of clarity after periods of coherence, moments when complex problems unravel effortlessly. Even in everyday life, coherence makes simple acts, cooking, writing, speaking, feel infused with originality and ease. It is as though coherence tunes you into the deeper currents of imagination, where ideas already exist in potential, waiting for a steady signal to bring them into form. And when you create from this space, others sense the difference. Your work carries a resonance that touches beyond intellect, reaching the heart. But coherence is not limited to inner clarity and creativity. It also transforms how you relate to uncertainty. Incoherence breeds anxiety because it thrives on control. When outcomes are unpredictable, the scattered signal interprets them as threats. Coherence, however, softens this fear, not by promising certainty, but by offering stability within uncertainty. Like a tree bending in the wind, coherence allows you to remain rooted even as external circumstances shift. This resilience is not passive. It is dynamic, a living flexibility that adapts without losing center. In a world that often feels unpredictable, coherence becomes a form of quiet courage, allowing you to navigate change without collapsing into panic. You no longer require the world to be fixed in order to feel safe. Safety arises from the frequency you carry within. One of the strangest effects of coherence is its ability to alter how you perceive distance and connection. With practice, you may begin to notice that you feel others even when they are far away, that your heart synchronizes with loved ones across oceans, that your intention reaches those you think about more strongly than chance would suggest. Modern research on non-local connections between hearts and brains is beginning to validate what many have felt, that coherence bridges distance in mysterious ways. This does not mean you can control another's life, but it does mean your field interacts with theirs, often beyond conscious awareness. Many people describe sensing when someone they love is in trouble or thinking of them, only to receive confirmation later. Such experiences remind us that coherence is not bound by physical proximity. It belongs to the greater field in which all things are connected. With this awareness comes a heightened sense of responsibility, because you recognize that your inner state does not remain private. The energy you broadcast influences not only those you meet in person, but those you hold in thought. Anger, resentment, and fear ripple outward, just as compassion, forgiveness, and appreciation do. Coherence invites you to become more intentional about what you contribute, not from guilt, but from recognition of your power. Every moment you choose coherence, you lighten the field around you. Every moment you scatter into incoherence, you add to the noise. Neither makes you good or bad, but both shape the reality we share. This awareness is humbling, because it reveals that global change may not begin in palaces or parliaments, but in bedrooms and kitchens. In the silent coherence of ordinary individuals choosing alignment in their daily lives, not as coherence matures, a profound gentleness often arises. You stop fighting yourself with the same ferocity as before. The inner critic softens, not because you silence it, but because you see it as a fragment of incoherence that no longer defines you. You become kinder in your thoughts, gentler in your judgments, slower in your reactivity. This gentleness extends outward, shifting how you see others. Instead of reducing them to roles, opinions, or mistakes, you begin to sense the signal they carry beneath the surface, their longing for coherence, their struggles with incoherence, their hidden beauty. Compassion ceases to be an abstract virtue and becomes an instinctive response. You feel the invisible threads connecting you, and you realize that every person, no matter how challenging, is another frequency trying to remember its own harmony. This gentleness reshapes conflict in remarkable ways. Arguments that once escalated into hostility now dissolve more quickly, because coherence steadies your nervous system enough to listen without collapsing into defensiveness. You can hold another's perspective without losing your own, because your sense of identity is no longer fragile. Forgiveness becomes easier, not as an excuse for harmful behavior, but as a release of incoherence within yourself. You forgive not because others always deserve it, but because you deserve the freedom that coherence brings. And this freedom transforms relationships. Friendships deepen because they are no longer built on unspoken expectations, but on authentic resonance. Partnerships strengthen because coherence stabilizes the emotional storms that once tore them apart. Even brief encounters become more meaningful because you are present enough to meet others as they are, not as your projections. Another fascinating shift coherence brings is in the experience of silence. In incoherence, silence feels awkward, uncomfortable, even threatening. The mind rushes to fill it with chatter, distractions, or noise. But in coherence, silence becomes luminous, a space of richness rather than absence. You begin to relish quiet moments, sensing that silence itself is alive with presence. Ancient traditions often describe silence as the language of the soul, and coherence makes this intelligible. In silence, your nervous system recalibrates, your field stabilizes, and your perception widens. What once felt empty now feels full. You recognize that silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of coherence itself, a reminder of the deeper rhythms flowing beneath the surface of experience. Ultimately, coherence is revealed not as a practice you visit, but as a home you inhabit. It is not something extraordinary reserved for retreats or rituals, but something woven into the ordinary fabric of life. Drinking water with awareness, listening without interruption, breathing consciously in traffic, appreciating a flower on the sidewalk, these are not trivial acts. They are coherence in motion, daily reminders that the architect of reality is not elsewhere, but within you. And as this truth takes root, you stop searching for dramatic transformations and begin honoring the quiet revolutions occurring in each moment of alignment. You realize that coherence does not shout. It whispers. It does not demand. It invites. And in accepting that invitation again and again, you step into a way of living that is both profoundly simple and endlessly transformative. In this recognition, the practice circles back to its essence. Coherence is remembering to breathe, remembering to soften, remembering to align with the rhythm of the field. You will forget, of course, everyone does. But forgetting is not failure. It is the opportunity to remember anew. Each return strengthens the signal, deepens the resonance, and anchors you more fully in the truth that you are not separate from the infinite field of possibility. You are one of its living expressions, a conscious frequency shaping the music of reality. And the more you embody this, the more the dance of life reveals its hidden choreography, not as something imposed upon you, but as something created with you, through you, and for you. As coherence becomes more natural in your life, a quiet transformation unfolds in how you carry yourself through ordinary moments. What once felt like small, inconsequential choices begin to reveal themselves as thresholds, tiny gates through which the quality of your frequency passes into form. You notice that irritation while waiting in line can ripple into the rest of your day, shaping encounters and coloring perception, while one soft breath of patience can shift the entire trajectory. These are not minor details. They are the points where your inner signal weaves into the outer field, deciding whether the day unfolds with heaviness or with lightness. And in realizing this, you begin to treat small moments with reverence, because you see that coherence is not achieved in grand gestures, but in the subtle rhythm of daily life. One of the most fascinating discoveries in this stage is how coherence influences not only how you perceive the world, but also how the world perceives you. People begin to respond differently, often without knowing why. They may describe you as calm, trustworthy, or inspiring, even though you are simply breathing more steadily and carrying alignment within. This is resonance in action. Just as a tuning fork vibrates another into harmony, your coherent field gently invites others to stabilize. You are not persuading or controlling, but offering a frequency that others recognize at an instinctive level. Over time, this creates a subtle magnetism. Opportunities, conversations, and connections seem to arrive with less effort, not because the universe is bending to your will, but because you are radiating a clear, steady signal that the field naturally responds to. As you live this way, your relationship with challenge shifts again. Difficulties no longer feel like enemies to conquer, but like teachers arriving with lessons in disguise. A conflict may show you where your boundaries need clarity. A setback may reveal where you have been gripping too tightly to outcomes. A delay may invite you to deepen patience. In each case, coherence allows you to see beyond the surface frustration to the hidden invitation. And by meeting challenges with presence rather than resistance, you transform them into stepping stones. This does not mean life becomes painless. It means pain is no longer wasted. It becomes compost for growth, nourishing the soil of your awareness. And in this way, coherence transforms even suffering into participation in the greater rhythm of becoming not another subtle gift of coherence. At this stage is the awakening of gratitude as a constant companion, not the forced gratitude of lists or mantras, but a spontaneous recognition that arises unbidden. You may find yourself pausing mid-task, struck by the beauty of sunlight on a wall, the sound of laughter in the distance, or the sensation of breath moving in your chest. These moments of unprovoked gratitude are signs that coherence is stabilizing, that your nervous system is learning to rest in alignment. Gratitude, in turn, deepens coherence, creating a feedback loop of stability and joy. It is not dramatic, but it is profound. You realize that life does not need to be extraordinary to feel extraordinary. It only needs to be coherent. At the heart of this process lies an important truth. Coherence is not about controlling life, but about partnering with it. You no longer approach the world as something to dominate, nor do you surrender passively to fate. Instead, you engage as a co-creator, attuned to the subtle dialogue between your inner frequency and the outer field. Each breath, each choice, each act of awareness becomes part of a conversation that stretches beyond your individual story into the collective song of humanity. And as you contribute your note with intention, you recognize that you are part of something vast, mysterious, and beautiful. This recognition is humbling, but it is also empowering. It reminds you that while you cannot control every storm, you can always choose the signal you bring into it. And often, that signal is enough to change not only your experience, but the experience of those around you. In the end, coherence at this stage reveals itself as a practice of remembering, to pause, to breathe, to soften, to align. You will forget, and then you will remember again. And each time you return, you strengthen the pathways of coherence until they feel less like effort and more like home. Life remains unpredictable, but you are no longer lost in its turbulence. You carry within you a compass that does not waver, a steady signal that shapes reality gently but profoundly. And in living this way, you discover that coherence is not the exception, but the essence of who you are, conscious energy, remembering itself, shaping reality with every breath. And so, as this journey comes to rest, remember that coherence is not a finish line you cross, but a rhythm you return to again and again through breath, through silence, through the choices you make in ordinary hours. The storms of life will still pass overhead, but within you there remains a steady compass, a field of resonance that no chaos can erase. Each pause you take, each moment of compassion you choose, each breath drawn with awareness becomes part of a greater signal, one that not only reshapes your own path, but ripples outward into the collective we share. In this way, coherence is both intimate and universal, both personal practice and quiet gift to the world. So let this awareness travel with you now. You are not separate from the field of infinite possibility. You are one of its living expressions, luminous and essential. Breathe gently, walk softly, and carry this signal forward. And if this story resonated with you, subscribe to our channel so we can meet again next time, where other stories are also waiting for you, each one another. Doorway into the deeper rhythm of reality that has always been here, waiting for your remembering.